In 2016, Formula One nearly died quietly. Not from a crash, not from a scandal, from something far more dangerous. For any business. Irrelevance. The races were boring. The same car won every single Sunday. The engines had been changed to hybrid turbos that sounded like vacuum cleaners compared to the roaring V8s fans had loved for decades. Viewership was declining across Europe. The young audience, the 18 to 34 demographic that every sport needs to survive, had almost completely disappeared. And then Liberty Media, an American media company, paid $8 billion for it. At the time, a lot of people thought they were crazy. $8 billion for a sport with an aging fan base, a shrinking TV audience, a product that its own fans were complaining about, and a business structure so secretive and complex that even insiders didn't fully understand where the money went. $8 billion. And today, Formula One is valued at somewhere between $15 and $17 billion. It added a race in Las Vegas that generated over $1 billion in economic impact for the city in a single weekend. Its calendar is sold out years in advance, with cities around the world begging to host a Grand Prix and paying record fees to do so. And its fan base, that dying, aging, disappearing fan base, has not only stabilized but exploded. 40% of F1's global fan base is now female. The average age of a new F1 fan has dropped by nearly a decade. This is not luck. This is not just a Netflix show. This is one of the most deliberate, well-executed brand transformations in the history of sport. And the playbook they used is something every person building a business, a brand, or a career needs to understand. Let's go back to the beginning. Because to understand what Liberty Media did right, you first need to understand what Bernie Ecclestone did, and what he got catastrophically wrong. Bernie Ecclestone ran Formula One for over 40 years, and in many ways, he was a genius. He built F1 from a loose collection of races into a global commercial juggernaut. He negotiated the television deals that put Grand Prix racing on screens in every country in the world. He created the Concord Agreement that aligned teams, circuits, and the commercial rights holder into a single, unified product. He turned Formula One into a billionaire's playground. Expensive, exclusive, prestigious, and enormously profitable for those at the very top. But Bernie had one fatal blind spot. He didn't believe in the internet. He famously dismissed digital media as irrelevant. He actively prevented Formula One from building a social media presence. He sold the TV rights to pay-per-view broadcasters in key markets because the money was better, even though it meant millions of casual fans simply couldn't watch anymore. Under Bernie, Formula One was a closed system. The money was fantastic for insiders, but the doors were shut to anyone new. When Liberty Media arrived, the first thing they did was open the doors. They made F1 content available on YouTube. They built social media channels from scratch and started posting clips, highlights, historical footage, content that had been locked away for decades. They renegotiated broadcasting deals to ensure the sport was visible on free-to-air television in key growth markets. They launched F1 TV, their own streaming platform, giving fans direct access to every race, every practice session, every qualifying round. And then they made one decision that changed everything. They said yes to Netflix. Drive to Survive premiered in 2019, and if you want a masterclass in how storytelling can transform a brand, you don't need to go to business school. You just need to watch what happened to Formula One after that show launched. Before Drive to Survive, F1 was a sport about cars and lap times. After Drive to Survive, it was a show about ambition, rivalry, betrayal, ego, friendship, and failure. Suddenly, the drivers weren't just athletes, they were characters. The team principals weren't just managers. They were protagonists in a high-stakes drama playing out at 200 miles per hour. The United States, a market that Formula One had tried and failed to crack for decades, went from an afterthought to one of the fastest-growing F1 markets in the world. 3 American Grand Prix are now on the calendar: Miami, Austin, Las Vegas. A country that barely knew what Formula One was 10 years ago now has 3 races and a fan base that fills every grandstand. That is the power of narrative. That is what happens when you stop selling a product and start telling a story. But here's what most people miss about the Drive to Survive effect. The show didn't just bring in new fans. It changed the commercial dynamics of the entire sport. New fans meant new demographics. New demographics meant new sponsors. Technology companies, fashion brands, lifestyle companies, businesses that would never have considered Formula One before started seeing a young, global, digitally engaged audience and wanting to be part of it. LVMH, the luxury conglomerate behind Louis Vuitton and Moet Hennessy, signed a massive multi-year partnership with F1, Aramco, Heineken, Salesforce. These are not traditional motorsport sponsors. These are global brands targeting a global audience, and they found that audience in Formula One's new fan base. Sponsorship revenue across the grid has grown dramatically. Team valuations have followed. In 2020, you could theoretically buy a midfield F1 team for somewhere around $200 million. Today, no F1 team is available at under $1 billion, and the top teams are valued at several billion each. The asset appreciated because the audience grew. And the audience grew because someone made the decision to tell better stories. Now let's talk about the business structure underneath all of this, because Formula One's financial architecture is genuinely fascinating and very different from what most people assume. Formula One operates on what is essentially a franchise model, similar in some ways to the NBA, but with some crucial differences. The commercial rights to Formula One, the TV deals, the race hosting fees, the sponsorships, are all controlled centrally by Formula One management, which is owned by Liberty Media. The teams participate in the sport and receive a share of the prize fund, but they don't own a piece of the commercial rights the way, say, an NBA franchise owner has equity in the league itself. This means the teams are simultaneously the product and the tenants. They create the spectacle, the racing, the competition, the drama, but the landlord collects most of the commercial rent. The prize fund distributed to teams is roughly 50% of F1's total revenue, currently somewhere in the region of $1.2 to $1.5 billion per year, split across the 10 teams, weighted heavily toward the teams that finish higher in the Constructors' Championship. But here's where it gets interesting. Because Liberty Media also introduced something that Bernie Ecclestone had always resisted: a budget cap. From 2021, Formula One introduced a cost cap limiting what teams can spend on car development and operations to around $135 million per year. This number is being gradually reduced over time. Before the cap, the top teams, Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, were spending $400, $500, even $600 million per year on their operations. The smaller teams were spending $100 to $250 million. The competitive gap was enormous and growing. It was, in business terms, an oligopoly. The rich teams got richer, the gap widened, and the racing became predictable. The budget cap changed that dynamic. It forced the top teams to operate more efficiently. It gave the midfield teams a genuine chance to compete. And most importantly for the business of Formula One, it made the racing more unpredictable. More unpredictable racing means more drama. More drama means better television. Better television means higher viewership. Higher viewership means more money for everyone. It is the same insight that drives the NBA's salary cap and the Premier League's revenue sharing. The league is worth more when the competition is genuine, and genuine competition requires structural guardrails. Liberty Media understood that they weren't just managing a sport. They were managing a content product, and the quality of the content depended on the quality of the competition. Now let me tell you about Las Vegas, because the Las Vegas Grand Prix is the perfect case study in how Formula One thinks about growth differently from the sport it used to be. In 2023, Formula One brought a Grand Prix to the Las Vegas Strip. They didn't just rent a circuit and show up. They took over the city. They built a pit lane and paddock structure on public land. They negotiated with casinos, hotels, and the city government. They turned a sporting event into a cultural moment, a week-long festival of entertainment, celebrity, and spectacle that happened to also include a car race. The race itself generated an estimated $1.2 billion in economic impact for Las Vegas in a single weekend. The hosting fee that Las Vegas paid to F1 was one of the highest ever agreed for a single Grand Prix. And Formula One didn't just charge a hosting fee and walk away. For the Las Vegas race, F1 management took a direct equity stake in the event, meaning they shared in the revenue upside rather than just collecting a flat fee. It was the first time F1 had operated as a direct commercial partner in a Grand Prix rather than just a licensor. That is sophisticated business thinking. That is a company that has moved from selling a product to building a platform and then taking equity in the value that platform creates. So what can you take from all of this? The first lesson: accessibility is not the enemy of exclusivity. For decades, Formula One believed that being hard to watch, hard to understand, and hard to access was part of its premium appeal. Liberty Media proved the opposite. Making the sport easier to find, easier to follow, and easier to love did not cheapen the brand. It expanded it. The Las Vegas Grand Prix still costs thousands of dollars to attend. The paddock is still one of the most exclusive environments in sport. But millions of new fans found their way in through YouTube and Netflix and free highlights, and they are now buying merchandise, attending races, and spending money in the F1 ecosystem. Accessibility created the funnel. Exclusivity closed the sale. The second lesson: your audience is your most undervalued asset. Formula One had an audience. It was just the wrong one: aging, declining, and not particularly attractive to modern advertisers. Liberty Media didn't abandon that audience. But they invested heavily in building a new one alongside it. They understood that an audience is not a fixed thing. It can be rebuilt. It can be expanded. And when you expand your audience, every other asset you own becomes more valuable automatically. The third lesson: narrative is a business strategy, not just a marketing tactic. Drive to Survive was not a PR exercise. It was a fundamental repositioning of what Formula One is. Before the show, F1 sold speed and technology. After the show, F1 sold human drama set against a backdrop of speed and technology. That shift, from product to story, unlocked a completely new commercial universe. If you're building a business or a brand and you're struggling to grow, ask yourself, are you selling a product or are you telling a story? The ones who tell stories win. If this opened your eyes to how one of the greatest sports business turnarounds in history actually happened, and you want more of this every week, hit subscribe. Because next week, we're going inside another empire built on sport, money, and the kind of thinking most people never see. I'll see you there.